This is episode number 5 with Josh Taekman.
So let's go, I follow, wherever you go, 'cause you're...
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Inventions Show, a podcast about all things invention and reinvention, where entrepreneurs, artists, influencers, and authorities in the field today share their story of triumphs and challenges in both life and business. My name is Tacklee, entrepreneur, international property investor, inventor, and the host of this show. Now, today I've got a totally awesome special guest and thrilled to have him on the podcast. Josh Taekman, founder and CEO of EBOOST. Now, he's a visionary, a powerful innovator in brand marketing and business development with a specialty in music, entertainment, and consumer-facing products. You know, a true master negotiator and deal maker who has the keys to putting the art of the deals together. So totally mind-changing, life-changing, and business-changing. So welcome to the show, Josh, and thanks for being with us.
God, thank you. And man, I can't wait to meet that guy that you just described.
I'm speaking to him.
Yeah, well, thank you. You're way too kind and generous for sure.
Oh, good. Now, the first thing I would like to ask all my guests, you know, for those who are not familiar with yourself, is can you please give us a window into your background and who you are and what was your first job?
Yeah, so my background, I grew up in a really nice little quaint suburb in Northern California outside of San Francisco called Danville. It was like a small community, but it was like one of those communities where you knew every single person that lived there just by the car that they drove.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a really amazing place to grow up. But I don't know how I think it was Rapper's Delight was the first rap song that I ever heard. And for some reason at like 11 years old, it really stuck with me and I loved it. And then I found myself with one of my best friends at the time. He had an older sister and her boyfriend lived a couple towns over. And he was big into hip hop too. So he used to take us to these concerts. When we were 11 years old, we'd take Bart to Oakland Coliseum. I don't think my parents had any idea where I was going and what I was doing, but we were going to these amazing hip hop concerts at Oakland Coliseum, like at the age of 11 and 12.
That's
so
cool.
It really got it kind of got into my blood, and I just became really passionate and addicted to that music and like learning about that culture. Cause I grew up in the most suburbs. It was not a multicultural environment that I grew up in. Mm-hmm. Granted, Oakland and places like that were close by, but so I just kind of immersed myself in understanding the music and the players in the music space and just kind of studying it. And that carried me out through high school and college. I went to school. I graduated from University of Arizona. And when I was at University of Arizona, I started doing nightclubs and doing concerts at University of Arizona, much more urban-based music. And I learned a lot of that from my days at San Diego State, where my friends were all nightclub promoters. So I kind of took what they were doing in San Diego and brought it to Tucson.
Oh, that's awesome. Awesome. Now, being a Yoda, you know, in branding, marketing, and sponsorship, and going back earlier on to your career with Bad Boy Entertainment, you know, you've inked countless endorsements and cross-promotional opportunities, you know, create partnerships with superstars, you know, like Jay-Z, Busta Rhymes, and Lauryn Hill. And, you know, you basically almost so pioneered P. Diddy or Puff Daddy Combs' brand earlier on. Now, can you please share your story at Bad Boy and how did you, like, basically, yes, you're into the hip hop, area. How did you get on his radar?
It was interesting because I lived in LA and I ended up moving to New York on a whim. And when I was in LA, I interned at a hip hop record label called Tough Break with a guy named Evan Forrester. Literally when I mean intern, I mean you got paid nothing. I think on Fridays we got to go eat from the food cart for free, but I just loved it. But it was a small little independent label that was part of A&M Records, so there really weren't like a lot of positions to grow into there. Mm-hmm. But I just loved being around the music, and then I'd have to do production work on the side to pay my bills and all that. And then I ended up taking a real job at like an entertainment marketing company, and I took a job at an entertainment marketing company and was doing that for a while, but I was always enamored with New York. And so there was a trade show happening in Washington, D.C., and one of my friends was out in New York modeling. And so he said, well, why don't you come visit me and stay with me before you go to D.C.? And so I was like, absolutely. What a great idea. So I think I went there like on a Thursday, and my trade show started on a Monday in DC. Okay. And I flew to New York, actually for the second time. First time I went like upstate for something separate, but I'd never been to New York City. And I took the bus in from JFK, which was chaotic. And my first experience in New York was not great. I'm just like, this is JFK. This is the infamous global, U.S. hotspot. And I said, this place is a dump. And then taking the bus into the city, I'm just like, damn, this is a little rough and rugged. And it took forever, of course, in traffic. But once I got into New York City, it was like a whole different thing, man. It was just like, the energy just like basically took over your whole body, and you were floating in a sea of like 10 million people. You just felt like this chaos and people and noise and energy, but you felt you just kind of like slided through them. And then I went to his apartment, which wasn't really an apartment. It was a studio the size of like a cell phone, which I couldn't believe that any human being could live in a space that small, let alone two of us stay there for 4 or 5 days. But I quickly I fell in love with New York. And so after being there for 4 days, I just looked at my other buddy that lived there and I said, I'm moving here. And he said, yeah, right. He goes, I'll tell you this, if you get here in the next 30 days, you could stay in my apartment for free as long as you want.
Wow.
I literally went back to LA. I quit my job. I collected, 4, 5, 6 grand in commissions, which was everything that I owned, returned my car, dropped all the stuff at my parents' house in Northern California, and bought a one-way ticket to New York with no job, a free floor to sleep on, and had to figure out what I was going to do.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it was interesting. So I was kind of like too proud to be an assistant in the music industry and not necessarily qualified to be like a brand manager or product manager.
Yep.
So I ended up spending the first 3 months in New York just like going out every night, getting to know the city, getting to know people, building, a network and friends, and really immersing myself into the New York culture. And I ran out of money and I had to get a job, and I couldn't really find a position that was fitting for me in the music industry. So I ended up taking, some random jobs that were still kind of entertainment based, but they didn't really excite me or keep me motivated in any way. And my roommate worked for Hugo Boss, and so she was in charge of all the marketing, and they sponsored this huge tennis tournament in Florida, right outside of South Beach and Key Biscayne. So she's like, come with me and help me run the VIP hospitality booth. And I'm like, fantastic. A free week in Miami, South Beach at a tennis tournament, hanging out. I was in. So I was doing that, and I saw the guy that owned Tough Break Records, the very first place I worked at. And he's like, oh, give me some tickets. I want to bring some people. So sure enough, I hook him up, and he comes up to the VIP suite, and he brings this guy, Jeff Burrows, with him. And he introduces me, and Jeff's like, yeah. And Evan's like, no, Jeff is the new president of Bad Boy Entertainment. He was at Arista forever. He's a longtime friend. And so I just rapped with him for a little bit. And in the back of my mind, I'm just like, that's where I want to work. I want to work at Bad Boy. Growing up, I've always followed Puffy as a producer, even, as an intern at Uptown, and all the music and the fingerprints that he had on Jodeci and Mary J. Blige. So in the back of my mind, like, wow, Bad Boy would be a great place to kind of do what I want to do, and I didn't really say what I really wanted to do, but the idea is I wanted to be back in the music industry and do marketing. Marketing for the artist, but also creating marketing opportunities for the artists. So all the brand endorsement, sponsorship, partnership, event activation. So that really was kind of like what I would call my kind of like superpower I wanted to play in. Yeah. And now fast forward to Jeff. So I'm like, I would love to work at Bad Boy and be that kind of bridge between corporate America, brands, leveraging the artists and the talent and the music, and just create really like unique, call it non-traditional partnerships and opportunities and traditional partnerships. So I didn't really get the galls up to say anything to Jeff other than just like rap with him for a bit. So I got back to New York like 2 weeks later, and it just was on the back of my mind. I'm like, I should just cold call this guy and pitch the idea to him. So sure enough, I cold call his office, and he calls me back. He's like, yeah, I remember meeting you, and yeah, thanks for hooking us up. And I'm like, well, I really want to talk to you about an idea I had. And there's another guy that was already doing something very similar, Steve Rifkin at SRC, and he was doing a really great job at it. So he had kind of already proven that concept out because there was a big void in, brands and corporate America understanding how to tap into kind of that culture and music and lifestyle, particularly like the hardcore hip hop scene. So I meet up with Jeff. I pitch him the whole idea. He's like, yeah, that sounds cool. I get it. I think Puffy would like that. I totally get it and think it would be great to have something like that. So he's like, put together a business plan, and I'll set up a meeting with Puffy and you can pitch it to him. So
The
Sure
rest is
enough, he
history.
sets up the meeting. I go through all of my ideas and what I would do and my version of a business plan. Mind you, I didn't go to Harvard or anything like that. So at the very end, I put like $2,000, just like, I wanted to show him like I was really willing to take basically nothing and really commit myself
Yep.
and show that I put sweat equity in. And he started laughing. And I thought he was laughing like, man, come on, no one could live on $2,000 in New York, as he pulls up in like a brand new $200,000 Benz. And he goes, $2,000? You want me to pay you $2,000? I said, yeah, I just want to show you I'm committed. He goes, fuck that. I ain't paying you shit. Were his exact words. He goes, you eat what you kill. You eat what you kill. So if you're about it and you think you could do it, then you eat what you kill. And if you're not, then that's good. Then don't do it. But I'm not paying you anything. You got to earn it.
Wow. That must be a great intro to Puffy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, he was just straight up about it. So I respected that. At least he was candid.
No,
but
awesome.
It's funny. It's like just a couple months before I was too proud to be an assistant and get paid. And now I'm talking about going to work for free.
Yeah.
That's the irony in it.
All right. So now you've got, got lots of connections and business relationships basically around the globe. Now, how do you maintain and what is your key to, a good relationship with all these Forbes 500 top companies, such as Apple, Pepsi, Microsoft, Nike, just to name a few? What is the thing that you do?
I mean, honestly, I like people and I try and connect with people, and I don't make it about a one-way relationship. I make it about a friendship. And I've always learned kind of my motto is you got to give people 4 times more than you ever asked for.
Oh,
if you're the one always giving without asking, then ultimately they feel like, you know what, I want to help this guy out because I want to give something back to him. So I'm always it's just my nature is just to always try and connect good people to good people. So I don't think about it. And I think that there's a universal power out there that brings good people together and somehow karma connects at some point.
Yep.
So that's always been my motto. So I always try and, first of all, I try and always be respectful for anyone I meet and speak to them with my undivided attention, which I think is important. I think I realized remembering people's name is important. So I always make a habit of calling people by their name, even if I've only met them once. You meet multiple people through different events. So I think it's important that you're able to remember when and how you met them and, remind them that, we met at the such and such through such and such, and we have mutual friends such and such. And I just think that helps when you can connect through mutual friends. It just aligns the bond a little bit stronger. So I've always been pretty good at that. And I've, traveled quite a bit. When I say travel, go to all the events, whether it's the Super Bowls, the NBA All-Stars, Sundance, kind of like all the big marquee events in music, fashion, entertainment. I've kind of always been doing that since post-college. So I think through the course of those, call it circuits, you meet a lot of really cool, interesting people.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Now, out of curiosity, Josh, you're the master in marketing. What do you think about celebrity branding? Companies spend so much on celebrity branding, as it draws the crowd and people want to see it. What is your concept of celebrity branding for today's budding entrepreneurs?
You know what? I think that it's all about doing it right. There's a lot of bad examples of celebrity branding, and I don't think any celebrity can carry the load of a brand. I think it's lost a lot of its cachet because I think people realize a lot of people are doing it for money. And then I think they also realize that there's a lot of people doing it. So it's not that unique. When we were doing it with Puffy, like he was breaking color borders, right? Like here he is, this top African-American hip hop artist that has completely crossed over into mainstream America. I mean, he was on the cover of Vogue, for God's sake, so you know what I'm saying? So it was just an interesting time back in the 90s because, hip hop music took over rock and roll as the #1 listened music format. Yeah. So that just exposed the artists and the talent, and then the media outlets like VH1 and MTV and BET were the main ways that culture got their information. And really, a lot of trends were dictated out of those music videos. A majority of the trends were dictated out of music videos. So it was a very, very powerful source to connect with an audience and community.
Cool. Totally. Now, there's a whole generation, of how to make millions with no work and no effort, get rich quick culture today. teaching people how to make 6-7 figures, you know, sometimes per month, and showing off their cars on social media. I mean, what's your overall take on it? You know, why are so many people drawn to it?
I don't know, but if you know someone that knows a quick rich quick path, I'm in. I tried a few, and I've always struck out. I've never gotten across the finish line with anything that was a shortcut. I mean, I've looked, and I continue to look, but it's hard to find a good shortcut. But I will say that. So back to the question, I think people's egos are at hand. I think people they always want to portray success. So I think social media allows them to portray a certain type of lifestyle that they want others to be reflective of them. And I think we're all guilty. I'm definitely guilty of it. Everyone's guilty of it. Yeah. And it's polarizing when you're on Instagram, because you're always like, damn, someone has it better than me for sure. And there's usually a lot of people that do. So you definitely get envious and jealous when you scroll through Instagram. But you got to remember, everyone's only showing their best life.
Yes, that's true. So true.
And sometimes they're also showing a life that doesn't necessarily belong to them, and I'm also guilty of that. So it's just what it is. You know, if you're on Instagram, you know, you're flossing and you're trying to show a world of excitement, and I don't know, however you use your platform, that's what you're trying to put out there in some capacity. So I think it's important. It's meaningful. It allows me to stay in touch with people or just be familiar with what people are doing in their life, so you still feel connected without having to physically talk to them. Yeah. So it does allow you to kind of stay tuned with their day-to-day lifestyle. Yeah, but awesome. as it relates to, it's also a medium to build your own brand, because when people look into you, they look at your social handles first and foremost. So in a sense, that's truly a reflection of who you are and what you do. And you could tell a lot about someone's character through how they handle their socials.
That's true. That's true. Now, after Bad Boy, you started your own marketing agency, Buzztone, which did exceptionally well. You know, from there, how did you actually transition and get into the energy and supplements industry, such as, you know, EBOOST? I mean, not only that, you decided to go natural, which wasn't really big back then. So how was that transition, and would you do anything differently?
That's a good question. God, say it one more time so I answer it correctly.
Yep. So it's like after Bad Boy, you know, you started Buzztone, and then how did you transition into basically EBOOST and going into an industry where you didn't really know that much about?
Yeah, that's what I thought. So it was, so I started a marketing agency, and we were kind of like an experiential marketing agency. We did a lot of peer-to-peer marketing, influencer marketing, celebrity-driven marketing, endorsement deals, not traditional advertising. Yeah. So really EBOOST, I always just loved chasing ideas, and they were just more instinctual and kind of like passion projects than like well thought out business plans and really doing, you know, business analysis on the marketplace. It was much more of an instinctual thing. So I didn't have the benefit of having an MBA or the type of education you get like an Ivy League school. So I was definitely much more the school of hustle and figure it out. And so I was running a marketing agency, and someone came into me with one of their clients, another agency, and said, "Hey, I have no idea about this audience that he wants to reach, but he wants to create a line of vitamins for the urban marketplace or multicultural." And I said, "Great." And so I met with them, and he was big and creating a lot of different product lines, and he did like a lot of the private label stuff for Vitamin Shop and GNC, and he was a chemist and had his own manufacturing plant. So he was well situated in, you know, a multi-billion-dollar category, but there was really no lifestyle marketing involved in the supplement category. So when he came to me, it just like a light bulb went in my head, and I said, Jesus, I said, imagine like right now when people think of supplements, they think of like Gold's Gyms and like a bodybuilder and like a meathead, right? Like if you're going to take a pre-workout, you're kind of a meathead. You know, that was kind of like, and fitness really was just starting to come into its own. You know, a lot of people worked out for sports and athletics, and then the other ones worked out to like have a specific body to, you know, to kind of support a specific type of personality. But fitness wasn't like such a big trend at the time, but it was starting to become, you know, people all wanted to have that ripped body that looks like, you know, that they were in prison for 3 years as opposed to in Gold's Gym, but like long, lean, you know, you see, especially in the music videos, the guys doing pull-ups on the street corners,
Yes.
where they just had like big wide lats and arms and probably no legs. But that was like a new trend that was starting to happen. Fitness was starting to really take off. Places like Equinox gyms was starting to become a national footprint. So I said, well, if you really want to shortcut this and really tap into culture and the people that I think are not necessarily today's pre-workout or protein drinkers, but tomorrow's, because there's definitely going to be a shift. I said, let's go partner with this kid, 50 Cent. He's the hottest thing in hip hop music right now. And he's got this whole crew called G Unit, and they just launched a Reebok sneaker that's doing great. And they launched G Unit clothing, which is great. And I think most importantly is that I think 50 would love it. I think he would help design products that he would really take every single day and live by. Yeah. And I think he'd much rather be in the gym sipping a protein shake than be in the club drinking champagne, which was true. I mean, the guy works out like an absolute animal. Yeah. And so I pitched that idea. He had no idea who 50 was. And he's like, oh, sounds cool. Let's go meet him. So we set up a meeting. You know, they hit it off. They were definitely nerding out on product and formulas and ingredients and what he takes and what he thinks of them and which ones are good and which ones are bad and why. And so they really hit it off. So we came up with the idea of creating a joint venture and creating G-Unit supplements. And we were going to do that. And for me, it was great because I was bringing the talent and the brand and the business together. And then I would have been responsible for all the marketing.
And this was the late 2000s?
Yeah, late 2000s, before Vitamin Water. Yep. And so all we had to do is, so Mel was working on formulas. The lawyers were putting together paperwork. It was going to be a real joint venture. And then 50 was getting ready to go away to Europe for 3 months for his European tour. And they were going to meet on Friday, the day before he left, way out on like exit 45 in Long Island. And 3 o'clock meeting, and sure enough, they called me from New Jersey, 50 and his manager, and they're like, oh, we're still in Jersey. It's going to be tough with traffic for us to get there, which it would. I'm like, great, get a helicopter. I mean, take a plane from Newark to Islip. Like there's a way to get it figured out, but it's 12 o'clock, you got 3 hours, or 11 o'clock, you got 4 hours. And that just put a knot in my stomach. I'm just like, this is not a good sign. This is the fact that they're already calling, trying to just turn it into a phone call. Yeah. I just know Mel's quirky personality. Like, if you don't commit and you don't show up, then he's just going to think you're not serious. Yeah. And sure enough, that's what happened. And the deal never happened. And 50 never made it and thought he could call and went off to Europe and, you know, had wild success in everything, including Vitamin Water. But I think G-Unit vitamins and supplements could have really broken through in an interesting way, in a explosive way, in a category that wasn't expecting this kind of marketing or talent to be into it.
Okay. Yeah, awesome.
And so through that, I was having lunch with the buddy, and we started talking and commiserating, and we just started talking about our own need states and saying, wow, I mean, neither of us would drink Red Bull or Monster. And the few times I would drink a pre-workout, I thought my heart was going to come out of my skin and I couldn't even work out. So I'm just like, God, there's just no healthy, clean energy drinks out there. Imagine if like Baraka, which was a product that was, you know, mostly vitamin C, B12, zinc from Europe, but had like a really cool personality and people took it for different reasons. Imagine if like Baraka, Emergency, Airborne, and like a healthy, natural version of energy all came together. I'm like, that's a product I would take every single day.
Yeah, no, same here. I take Baraka here because I can't find EBOOST, Josh.
We got importers. We got people bringing it into Australia.
That's cool. Now, I just want to quickly touch on strategy. What's your strategy for differentiation for EBOOST? Because there's a lot coming on the market, especially now.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've disrupted, you know, the packaging. I think we've taken a totally unique approach in our packaging. Yeah. So it stands out. It's much more about the benefit, why you would take it. So like our drink is called Super Fuel, and then it's called You're Kicking a Can.
Yes. No, I've been checking out the website. It looks good.
Yeah. And then all of the branding is different. It's all about the functionality and the reason why to take it, not so much about the brand. I think, you know, we're still a super small brand, so it's the personality. It's like where we show up and how we show up and who we're aligned with, and not through like traditional, not through like traditional advertising and stuff, but much more event related and associations with different talent. And, you know, marketing wise, we're just trying to, you know, I learned early, it was a rocket fire approach. I just would just hand out samples everywhere. We had so little distribution, but I'm all over the country at every event passing out product, but it really never tied back to getting the product sold.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I mean, just going back when you said EBOOST is a super small brand. I mean, how did you manage to, you know, create a brand with a super high profile list? I mean, such as Oprah. I mean, and you got onto her favorites list, and then people like Heidi Klum, Victoria Beckham, and our local hero here, you know, Hugh Jackman. How did you get onto? What was your angle there?
You know what? We were just really fortunate. We were fairly connected, and we were able to just get the product in people's hands.
Mm-hmm.
And it was funny. I was leasing my house in LA, and I was trying to sublease it. And this guy showed up and was looking at the place, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he spotted a box of EBOOST.
Oh.
And he starts talking about himself like in the third person to his assistant, like, "Well, what do I fly? Why do I only fly Virgin America?" And she's like, "'Cause they have EBOOST." He's like, "What's my favorite product?" And she's like, "EBOOST." He's like, "Who do I give EBOOST to?" She's like, "Everyone." "Who else loves EBOOST?" And she's like, "Brad Pitt and Jonah." And so like he's a big time director, and he just like did Moneyball with like Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill. He's like, "I give EBOOST to all the stars, and they all love it. All day, every set, everyone's asking me for my EBOOST. I have to bring in so much EBOOST just to give it to the crew and the staff and the talent." And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. I wish I knew a million people like you.
Yep. That's awesome.
So the point is, it's like water in a crack. If you have a really good product, the water finds you in some capacity, but you have to put it out there. You have to make an effort to get the product in the right circles, and then you just hope people stumble across it.
Cool. Now, your work ethic is impeccable. You know, as a serial entrepreneur, Josh, what do you think your biggest area of improvement or challenge is today? I mean, both in life and business. Has it been all rainbows and unicorns?
I wish. Show me a unicorn. I want to catch a ride. No, it's been grind, trap, hustle. It's like, it's nonstop. You know, everyone is not meant to be an entrepreneur. That's for sure. And I say that with all seriousness. Like, you have to be prepared to do all the shit that sucks. You have to be prepared to be the only one in the office not making any money. You have to be the one prepared that has to figure out how to keep the lights on. You have to be the one that takes all the risk. You have to carry all the liability. You are responsible for pulling that train regardless. And then once you have people on the train, then you even have more responsibility. So small businesses, 1-2 people, like you could sleep a little better at night, but when you start getting 10, 15, 20, like that's a lot of people you're accountable for. And their livelihoods and their well-being. So definitely, I mean, it's incredibly exciting, and it's definitely for certain types of personalities. You know, there's plenty of days I wish I wasn't that guy, you know, but then there's the fulfillment of being your own boss and being able to chart your own course. And it's more, everything is really more about personal challenges. Like, I think I can do, I know I can do it, and I'm willing to take on the challenge.
Yeah. Now, you've reinvented yourself, you know, multiple times through your journey. If you could go back and talk to your 18-year-old self or a bit younger, what would you tell him?
You know, honestly, I would have taken education more serious. If I could really go back, I would have taken education more serious. I would have got a master's degree or a law degree, because I just think having one of those others just gives you certain thought process and ability to problem solve and start and finish projects efficiently and effectively. And I think it also teaches you like focus and discipline to be able to really, you know, start to finish do that. So I think I miss that kind of structure and knowledge base. And I think if I had that, I'd just be way more effective in everything that I do. And I'd probably be more laser focused and less distracted. But I would say the other thing is organization. Like, I'm not great at organizing myself or my database or just the things around me in my day-to-day life. I could be much better at that, or allowing someone to help me organize it.
Now, turning point, you know, when you look back at your entire life, everything that you have, your business and everything, is there one thing that changed everything for you? You know, a moment that you look back and you go, aha, that's the moment that basically changed.
I don't think there was any. Well, I think that the moment that changed for me is when I heard the song Rapper's Delight. because it really opened my mind up to a whole nother universe and another culture. And I was really excited about the music and the culture and the fashion and everything that went with it. So
Yep.
I think it got me, and I think people would say that about a sports moment too. It really got them, you know, when such and such hit a home run with his favorite team, it made him want to be a baseball player.
Yep.
So I just think that stuck me into a culture that I wanted to be a part of. And there's a lot of ways to play in that world, whether it's fashion, entertainment, music, movies, whatever that is. But there's an interesting lifestyle that's associated with those kind of professions.
Okay, cool. Now we've got an audience of, you know, from over 90 countries here, you know, listening and watching. In interesting times like this, you know, what will your advice for those who want to start a business or already in a business? You know, some countries are starting to open up, but in general, people are still at home and there's a lot of so-called free time. I mean, what should people be doing right now, in your view, so they can come out firing?
I think they should be focusing where they can get success and just being laser focused on. So if it's revenue based, you know, and profitability, I think this is a moment where you got to step back and you got to, you know, take a real self-examination of your overhead and your cost structure. And right now it's about being lean and mean and focused to getting to profitability or more profitability in your business, or profitable to keep things going at a pace that you're comfortable with. So I think it allows you to do an audit almost on your current business and then figure out like where there needs to be some pivots or or the areas that are successful and drill down on those.
Gotcha. Now you introduced Superfuel, as you mentioned earlier on, you know, I think about a year ago, and then also landed a joint venture with Arizona Beverages, you know. So in your opinion, and how do people know when it's time to reinvent themselves or their business? I mean, what are the triggering factors?
I think there's a natural course, and I also think it takes some creativity.
Yep.
It's all about the idea and understanding if there's a white space for it, and then creating some proof points, right?
Yep.
Like we always said, like our powder would make a great drink. But in order to do a drink, you have to have a ridiculous amount of capital and resources. It's so labor intensive. You know, you're talking about weights and measures and dims.
Yeah.
Like it's expensive to ship all this water across the country because the majority of it's water, right?
Yeah.
So that creates a huge cost structure to being able to do it. So in order, any beverage has to go raise a significant amount of money. And we've been fortunate over the years. We've raised money, you know, from family and friends and just one amazing family office. So we've been really blessed, but we've never raised enough to go build a massive team or to really try and scale, which maybe I would have done differently earlier, knowing what I know now. But I think you figure out, what can your team handle, right? Everyone has big dreams. And I think sometimes creativity can kill success because you're so busy chasing the next idea or the next product that you don't give your existing SKUs, you know, the right screw rationalization or the right, you might start seeing success. Like we're starting to see success in our pre-workouts. So we're putting way more resources into supporting that as opposed to going and creating protein and greens and this and that.
Yep.
You know, be more successful with what you have.
That's a good one. That's going to go into my book, that one. I'm going to write that one down. All right. Now, the wellness space is ever growing, as you know, and have grown tremendously in the last 10 years, especially in the last 10 years. Where do you see the future, and what trends do you anticipate will dominate, say, in the next 10 years?
I think it's going to change. Technologies can change things overnight, right? No one ever thought about Zoom fitness.
Yeah.
I mean, you started having Peloton and Mirror and those things, which are a microcosm of them in a different way. But I think that when technology allows platforms to innovate your business, like Instagram is a business for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I think it'll create new opportunities for those that spend the time and energy to develop them. So I know trainers right now, they're like, why in the world would I ever go back to working in a gym where I could just do my Zoom training? I could get 12 people in the class and I keep 100% of the money.
Yes. There's a lot happening like that at the moment. Yeah.
So I think there's some good things that came out of it.
So what's exciting for Josh Taekman at the moment? You know, what are you doing to position yourself for the new normal?
I mean, I've been living it day in and day out. You just have to accept what the conditions are and be overly communicative with your team and make sure that you guys are all aligned with what, the next, because this is a day by day thing. What does the next 30 days look like and how are we going to tackle it?
Mm-hmm. Crazy world we're living at the moment. Now, if you could have a billboard with anything on it, Josh, what would it be and why?
It would say, this is one of my favorite sayings, hustle till the people you could never reach start reaching out to you.
Ooh, that's gold. That's gold.
You know what I'm saying? It just means so much.
Yeah.
There's so much in those words. I would put that on a billboard. Or hustle includes Sundays is my other favorite.
Now, what superpower do you wish you have and why?
What superpower?
Yes.
I would say just organization. Just, like I have a guy, Thomas, that, well, maybe not organization, maybe more well-rounded. Like this guy is like MacGyver. Oh, we need to build a website.
Yep.
Yeah. We need to build a website. 30 minutes later, check this out. What do you think? I'm like, you just did that? And he's like, yeah, I just went online and knew how to do this, this, and this. And 30 minutes later, it's up. I mean, this kid can do everything. He's literally like a French MacGyver. So I'm not that. You give me a hammer, it's like the only thing that's going to happen is I'm going to get hurt.
Yeah. Awesome. Now we have to work towards wrapping up and super mindful of your time. Fantastic shares. Really appreciate your transparency and authenticity. Just two last questions. Josh, first is where can people find out more about yourself and EBOOST?
At eboost.com is a great place to start.
Mm-hmm. And secondly, what parting words of wisdom would you like to share for our listeners?
I think optimism. I think you always have to, there's always going to be problems and challenges, but you just have to be a problem solver, not a problem dweller. Too many people dwell on the problem and spend more time just focusing on the solution.
That's cool. Now, incredible learnings and knowledge. Thanks again, Josh. I'll let you go. Really appreciate your time. And all the best.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Same to you. Cheers. All right, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this interview. You can find me on social media at iam.tacklee and also at LiveTurnX. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. See ya.
YOLO, it's our show. There's one thing we know with all